Leave it the 17th of November, oh my gosh.
No kidding.
Thanksgiving's next week.
Good evening. Welcome to the City of Laconia Conservation Commission meeting of November 17th, 2001. I am Dean Anson.
Deb Williams?
Wesley Bates.
Lisa Moran.
Dietrich Feather.
Taylor Daigle.
So we have a quorum. Thank you, everybody. And we have a guest.
Yep. Anthony Bean Burpee.
And here's Mike Foote. Okay, so what I'd like to do is to adjust the agenda so that we start with 39 Reagan Way.
Select the flag first.
Oh, I'm sorry. But first we're gonna do a salute to the flag. I was waiting for Mike.
Wait till Mike sits down, yeah.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Now, it's yours.
Excellent. So, as I said, I'm Tony Bean Burpee. I live at 39 Reagan Way. I started by reaching out to the Director of Public Works just to obtain a parking or a driveway permit. I'm looking simply to tear up a section of my lawn that's 20 by 20. It's currently grass and has gravel, and just have a 20 by 20 hard pack area put in so I can park 2 vehicles there. I own a lot that's just under 3/4 of an acre, and it used to be a nursery years ago, so there's a retention pond that's on my property, and that's where I'm looking to put, right beside it, it's where I'm looking to put the parking area. And so because of that, Director Anderson sent me downstairs to the Department of Planning and Land Use. Then I needed to go through the Wetlands Committee, and now I'm here, and then hopefully on to the Planning Board, and then approval from there. So I'm looking to have GMI do the project sometime later in December, and they have advised me. I did, one of the questions I was asked the other day at the meeting was, you folks will probably want to know what erosion controls will be put into place, and GMI told me they will have a silt fence put into place. And I'm not doing there's only, like I said, it's a retention pond, and there's shrubbery and stuff on the side. It's all going to stay there. They're not taking any of that stuff up. And again, I'm just taking up the grass and putting down a hard pack. Or ledge pack, whatever they call it.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Ms. Burpee, I can't tell from, like, these photos. So we're talking about on this photo?
Yep.
This area, or?
Nope, this is the pond right here.
Yes, but this is 39.
This is 39, yep. So, right, yeah, it's gonna be right in here, right on the other side of this tree, right in this area right here.
Oh, okay, so this photo is not to scale then. So how deep would you be coming into the?
Right here. This would be moved over here a little bit, but it'd be right in this area.
Okay, and how close are you coming to the corner or where this is?
Well, it's gonna be right here, up, over, and down.
Feet from the edge of, I'm just wondering, feet from the edge of the pond.
Yeah, probably 10, maybe.
10, okay. Thank you very much, I appreciate that.
There's a tree that's not on that photo right now, so I'm putting it between the tree and the pond.
Gotcha, thank you.
And the pond is totally within your property?
It is.
Do you have a little dock on it? Is that what I see?
Yeah, it's not my dock, but yes, it was there when I got it. I don't even.
You don't fish?
I don't do anything there, no. People have told me I should probably put in a fountain. But I throw some nice discs in to keep the mosquitoes away, but I don't do anything else in the pond, no.
You might have a deal on your fountain.
What's that?
I might have a deal on your fountain.
Oh, okay.
How is it retaining water, its water level?
Yeah, so it actually went down when we had the drought, but then it's gone back up. So however it was done when it was a tree nursery, I think years ago. It's that 7-lot subdivision, so it just always maintains it. So I don't know where actually it comes from. I'm sure the groundwater and whatever runs into it, but it's not fed by anything as far as I know.
And is there, I apologize, I did look this over beforehand,
Yes.
but is there an outlet? Is that what I'm seeing down here? Is there an outlet, like maybe an underground or something? Is there an outlet?
There is not. There's nothing that runs underground from there across Reagan Way to the other side. Nothing at all.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So really what you're looking at is to place a ledge pack on this, area that I see, this relatively square area,
Right,
small up against the,
yes. Just looking at the house, I mean, you know, the conversation was, can you put it anyplace else? But aesthetically, looking at the house, the way my driveway is, I just want it off to the side. Yes,
what is the blue spot on this picture? Just the centralized of it? Is there anything, you're not laying anything all the way in that's already pre-established?
so I don't know what you're looking
This
at.
blue spot here.
I
on this
just,
photo.
I copied your application
All
on the
right.
blue color photo.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, so it's
That's right.
just,
It's just the
It's right here.
indication of the parcel on the computer. I think it's a little new.
perfect, all right, I'm sorry.
Oh, that blue dot?
Yeah.
I don't know what that blue
That's what
dot
she's
is.
saying, it's an
Oh.
indication of that parcel.
Oh.
It's a
Oh, is
computer
that,
thing.
that's
Oh,
not
okay.
where it's
No,
going?
it's
Right.
just, I click on that just to get the parcel.
So in relation to that blue dot, where is the
This right
rad
here.
getting?
It'd be the small crosshatched
Yeah.
area.
Way in the front.
Yes.
Correct.
He indicated if you move it just south, just a little bit from that image. So this picture that you're looking at, when I asked him, he pointed out that it comes down here just a little bit more than it
Okay.
is right there.
Okay.
And he said it's 10 feet from the edge, because that's what our discussion was, he says about 10 feet.
Yeah, this current one here, if I look at, you can, there's a tree here now, there's 2 trees. So it's between the tree and so I don't know when that was taken, but this is the current satellite view.
And I'm sorry if I haven't fully read all of this. This is there just for parking, or you're going to cover it with a, tent or anything like that?
Nope, just parking, you can, yeah, so if you look on here, so my, at that age, my 27-year-old son has moved back in, so he's got a car.
God bless them.
And I know, and I have a work car, and I have a 2-car garage, so the weekend cars go in there, and I want to be able to park my work car and his car over here, so I can snow blow during the winter.
All right,
Boomerang.
hey,
So
Ricochet, yeah.
these, and I don't know that we have any jurisdiction over this, and I guess I'm just asking the question for my own curiosity. So these are not vehicles, that like diesel vehicles, you have to start at 5 in the morning and let them run or anything like that, okay?
No.
Diesel.
Nope.
You know what I'm trying to say?
right. I'm good.
Thanks.
So are you gonna, you're just gonna put hard pack, you're not gonna pave it?
Correct.
Anybody have any other questions?
I do not. It seems like a reasonable pitch to me. One would want not to park your work vehicles on dirt to alleviate the, accelerated rusting. And it's nice to get out of a vehicle on a small pad where you don't break your ankle.
And I would say, just from my own experience with ledge pack, and of course, this is up to you and your contractor, I would guess, but it can move with erosion. So we've utilized ledge pack on a project where it's outdoors, exposed to rain and snow and all this other stuff, and it does travel. So I don't know if you might consider putting some sort of even wood or some kind of something that would help contain it from washing.
Okay, great, thank you.
It'll be easier for you to edge too.
Right.
You mean for a sun edge?
Sure.
What's that?
His
I
son,
said-
for your son to edge.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, anybody have any other questions? Okay, anybody wanna make a motion?
So, really on this, application 2021136, conditional use permit, really, is that what I'm saying? It's, for 39 Reagan Way, they're looking at making a block of 2020 ledge pack parking area on the side of the property near a retention pond. Being that it's not impacting the retention pond, it seems like a reasonable use of the property and allows the owner to have some auxiliary parking for his uses. And if we could put the suggestion that you, use edging to keep it from mitigating downstream, then
Second,
that's what I have.
sorry, second? Are you calling for a second, Mr. Chair?
I think the other thing I would like to see is instead of silt fence, use silt socks.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody want a second?
I'll second, thank you.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you.
All right,
So will I hear from you next, what the next one is?
Yep, next one will be planning board on the 7th
The 7th?
December.
And is that night or during the day?
That's at night.
Okay. Great, thank you so much.
thank you.
Take care, good night.
Okay. The other thing that I was gonna shift around is the green space data. Do that next.
I wanna do the minutes.
No.
I just thought that if Dean wanted to leave, then he could,
Oh, okay,
but I'll leave it up to Dean.
that's true.
Do we get a presentation?
I guess my question to you is, what else do you, I mean, we have not made any decisions. And we were kind of, I'm kind of anyway, looking for you folks as the first stop. To, and, you know, now that you've kind of seen the numbers, you know, where you think we can make some changes without adversely impacting, you know, the overall goal of green space. And we know we have a couple of weird anomalies, one of which is in the CR district. If it's commercial, it's 20%. If it's residential, it's 60%.
20, not 25.
Or maybe it's 25, but it's a very large difference, and I suspect it's probably driven by, you know, 10 years ago, or 15 years ago, or 20 years ago, whenever the numbers were formulated. People were looking at the properties that were already commercially developed and said, there's none of them that are 60%, so therefore we gotta come up with a number that makes sense. So they came up with 20 or 25. But I guess the question to ask is, if 25 is good for commercial, is it not good for residential? And putting aside the aspect of people may prefer to have more lawn around their house, and I get that, but I don't know that we need to want to make it a regulated thing. If that's what people prefer, then, you know, all to the better. You know, more is better, I guess, in this case, but, anyway, so it's those, there are those small little, you know, contradictions, but, I think the biggest area is, I think that we're looking to potentially make a change is in the RG district, and potentially the RS district, residential single family, where we have relatively small lots, 10,000 square foot lots. And the RG area is, we got a lot of 10th acre lots and those kinds of things in the RG already. And there's very, very few of those lots that come close to 60%. So it's that kind of change that we're looking to make. You know, it's not, I don't think we need to do anything in the RR1 and 2 area. I don't think we need to do anything in the SFR area. the commercial zones are already fairly low already, so I don't think we need to do anything more with them. I think they're already, so it's really that CR contradiction and then the RG and the RS zones. You know, we have RS zones, say, up in Lakeport. Once you get beyond, it's RG as you're closer to the water, but once you get, say, beyond where Washington Street crosses over, I think it is, then it becomes RS. But it's still a lot of, just as an example, there's still a lot of small lots in that area that, I don't know if 60% is, you know, is very realistic, you know. Same thing on off of Main Street, you know, Oak Street area, those kinds of areas where you make that transition from RG to RS, same situation.
In this density equation, and I just heard a lot about this last night, and I really don't know. Right, all right, so a little scrambled eggs here.
They are related.
Right. So, does this allow us to, by reducing the green space, which is already probably quite challenged,
Right.
does it allow us to do duplex in RG
It does.
or RS?
It does. It would be difficult to take an existing lot and go from single family to a duplex on a lot of lots with a 60% green space. And one of the issues that we run into, particularly in the RG zone, is people want to do accessory dwelling units, or they want to do a true conversion from single family to duplex, or maybe 2 to 3. You know, we get a lot of requests for those kinds of things, and one of the things they need relief from is, in many cases, is green space. They also need relief for side setback or rear setback or whatever, but they also need green space relief as well, so. I mean, this is related to the density issue that we've been talking with Master Plan Steering Committee in terms of, again, the utilities are already there. It's relatively inexpensive. Nothing's cheap anymore, but it's relatively inexpensive to create an additional unit of housing in the RG zone and some sections of the RS area, because the utilities are already there, the roads are already there, it's just building an extra unit, so.
So I think one of the things that came up at the last meeting was a discussion of, you know, Mike and I both own a property in the same district, and one of us has a, one of us applies and gets to be able to reduce the amount of green space, but because of conditions, I cannot apply. So is that going to be legitimate in terms of the law?
What, I'm missing something, but
No, you're not. I'm missing something.
why would, if you're both in the same zone, why would one be allowed to do something and the other one would not? That's the part I'm missing.
So, Taylor, do you remember what we
I
talked?
think you were referring to if you had like a brook in your property, then something was further limiting you on where you could develop versus somebody without that gets like the relief easier. I think that might have been the direction we were going in.
Okay, and, right, and we're not proposing to change any of the buffers. If you, using the gentleman on 80 Main Street there, who wants to rebuild his house from the fire,
Right,
he's almost all entirely within 75 feet of Durkee Brook, so therefore, he needs a CUP in order to do anything, you know.
but he owned the house and it burned down,
Yeah.
so,
Same footprint.
So, that's not changing, you know, that's not changing. And however, across the street from him, where they don't have the brook behind their house, yeah, they would be subject to a lower green space requirement, but not because of the zoning district, but because of the unusual factor that they've got a brook in their backyard that goes directly to the lake, so. And that would be true if you had the gentleman tonight, you know, unfortunately, his pond is just over the square footage cutoff that we established, and, it's been there so long, I don't know if it's man-made or natural, or it sounds like it's pretty natural if it fills up by itself, and, you know, it sounds like it's spring-fed, so, you know, we wouldn't be changing anything when it comes in a relationship to him. He's still gonna have the 50-foot buffer because he's got a wetland, you know, that's, so from that standpoint, nothing changes, and I guess I wouldn't call it necessarily a fairness issue because we have that circumstance now. You could have a large lot and have a lot of green space, way more than the 60%, and you're still gonna be subject to that 75 or 50-foot setback if you wanted to build a garage or you wanted to do something else. You'd still be, right now, you'd still be subject to not a disparity, but, you know, a different set of circumstances.
Okay, so, do you recall, Mike, what we were talking about?
well, my question is, and this resonates with me on some of the stuff that we were talking about last time we met on green space. And you were talking about a range, but as I listen to this, and I do have a concept of this. In the resort commercial, really that if there's only so much of it. And it should be closer to the 20 or 25%, what hasn't previously been developed. And that's only in certain setbacks on certain roads. What we're really looking at when we get into town, when we come into the inner circles, is being able to, in one way, adjust the compliance of some of these lots that were there before we actually came up with all the zoning, whether it's 60 or 70 or something like that. So it can reduce the amount of people that have to come forward into the process. But what we're also looking here, and maintaining the setbacks which we've previously established, which does mitigate the amount of development you could have on one lot, and it makes it each lot different like that. What we're really in the state newspapers and the regionals and the town, they're crying for more places to stay. And so within our inner structure, where we already have the infrastructure, and this isn't in the outers, this is in where we have the infrastructure, you know, water, sewer. It's already a tight area, and I don't know the answer as to what that density is. But certainly, we've tried to mitigate some of this by alleviating some of the hurdles for ADUs. You're going to see that people want to densify their lots. There's not a lot internally. When you look at the tax maps, it's not like you're going to see big sections internally that are all of a sudden become changed. But let's say you did have an older house, an eyesore, that was on a bigger lot, and you were able to redesign it and make it tighter, taller, using the same access to the same utilities. In that there, if that old house was there on a 60% or whatever it is in our RG or RS, then certainly we could densify without using more open space.
So the way this would work is an owner in one of the zones would come for an approval to add living space or another building. And right now, he's got to have 60% green space. And we're going to reduce it to some lower number. He could come in and submit an application to get a permit to build.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because when someone comes in with a building permit, one of the things that we do, in addition to the code side, doing review of the actual plans, it gets routed to the zoning side and conservation side and we do the green space calculation. How big is the house, how big is the driveway, how big is the lot? And we do and that's where we find out many times when somebody wants to do something, whether it's a porch, whether it's a garage, whether it's an ADU or a driveway or whatever, they just don't have, they're already used up all the coverage area that they are allowed. And then they gotta go to zoning board and they also may need if it's just a coverage area, then they just need a CUP from they'll come here and they'll go to planning. Now, if they've got other, I take that back, on coverage, they would have to go to zoning as well for that. If it's just a CUP for a wetland buffer, then they don't have to go to zoning for that, but, yeah, so that's the process now, and sometimes it gets to a point where we just say, sorry, but, you're out of usable space, and you gotta get some relief from somebody, depends on the circumstance, but, so that's the kind of the check and the balance that's going on. So, under this proposal, wherever we settle on a number, there's just that, there'll be less people that you'll see and more people that will just be able to approve the building permit. How many more, I don't know, but, the numbers will go in their corresponding direction.
So would there be a public hearing about these changes in green space?
Yes, this is an ordinance change.
Okay.
Yeah, we would have a public hearing at planning board level, and then there would probably be another one at city council level. It's optional at the city council level, but they almost always do a public hearing when we do a zoning change.
Okay, okay.
I'm not super familiar with all of this. Is there like a number you're thinking? Where you'd want the target to be around?
I would say for RS and that we probably would like to be in an RS is single-family, 10,000 square foot lot minimum. Probably probably 50, maybe 45, somewhere in there. For RG, I think we need to kind of be dramatic and maybe go to like 30 or 35, something along that line. In the CR district, in the lots that are likely to be developed as residential, it probably, these are the ones that are, for the most part, are already nothing on them, you know, they're empty lots. Going to 20% might be extreme for residential, but 60 I think is too high, given what's around it. So so I'm not sure, but, you know, say, just for sake of discussion, let's say 40% or something like that.
But no, and I'll jump in there and say on some of these pre-existing lots, it'd be much closer to 20% to be able to do something, and taking into consideration a leniency on parking, which some of the discussion now
Right, and that, yeah, and that's certainly, right, that's part of the thing.
So
I mean,
without having to make great parking areas for commercial use, you know, you can reduce that. Not everybody wants to build a building so big they can't pay taxes, so I think it falls into a natural balance on some of these lots. And it's few enough of them when you actually count them out.
Yeah, I mean, the drive-in right now, the drive-in site right now is probably 15% green space. I mean, it's a lot of pavement and gravel and mobile homes up in one section, so there's not a lot of green space there. When you take the lot that is being proposed right now for the condominiums up near Cumberland Farms, that's 100% green space right now. I mean, you know, and what they're proposing, they're at like 63% green space, so they're, you know, they're making it happen. And if our regulation had been 35 or 40% green space for residential on that proposed condominium project, I don't know that they could get any significant additional number of units, because it's just the way the layout of the land and the way they're laying it out, there really isn't room to build. You know, maybe they could get 2 more units in there, maybe, you know. It's just, it's not a matter, green space is not what's constraining them, it's the way the land, you know, lays there that's really constraining them, you know.
So, I don't know if this is completely appropriate, but I'm gonna make it more personal to me. It appears that the street I live on, Valley Street, is in the RG zone, which is currently at 60%.
Right.
And you're thinking of making that half. And so I'm envisioning houses behind the houses that are already there.
Potentially, yes, yep. Potentially. There's still there's still other setback issues and, you know, but, yeah.
So doubling the population of Valley Street.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
Okay.
ADUs need to be not as big, you know, as the primary house, you know, that kind of thing.
Auxiliary dwelling unit, ADU, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, okay. Okay, thanks.
Well, think about ADUs vice tiny houses. You do tiny house, doesn't matter how small a stamp you put your house on, you still need water and sewer.
I know, I'm just thinking
An
like,
ADU, you could add on to your own building, separated or not, and in it you're doesn't necessarily have to be family, but you can share the utilities. And, in that way, increase the density in a neighborhood, vice using open space.
So, just one thing that you said, I'm sort of balking at, is that nobody wants to build something so big they can't pay taxes on it, but that's not the trend we're seeing.
Well, depends on what section of town you're in.
Well, no, but I guess I'm just saying, I'm thinking that, I don't think we can think in terms of what the people we know can afford. So, that's all.
Yeah,
I,
you know, when you're talking Pine Street and Baldwin and, you know, and Oak Street and, you know, and those kinds of areas, taxes are very much a real life, you
Yeah.
know, consideration to whatever you do to your property. When you're talking Aqua Vista,
Yeah,
yeah, not so much, yeah.
so I'm not,
no, it's all good, it's all
Yeah.
good. That's what the discussion is for. And I've had people that I know who for years have out-earned me and live in the community.
yeah,
And they look at me and say, Mike, by God, it's untenable. I'm like, what's that? They go, well, property taxes are going up, land values is going up, and we're not gonna be able to live here. And they've been here 20 years. I'm like, hold on, here we go. And it's one of the realities, you know? But what is it you're trying to attract? Do you want, the standard right now here in this community is 250,000, 220, 250,000, what they're looking at as entry-level housing. It's something that some of us of an age wouldn't have even known. But it's in the reality now. When I was a kid, I lived in North Conway. I paid $350 a month for rent, and I had a chalet with 2 bedrooms, and hell, I made that in a week. So what did I care? But now it's different down here, and it's for real, and it causes people anxiety. But as a community, you have to look at what you're targeting. Are you going for the lowest common denominator to drive your growth and expansion and giving more services, or are you going to accept that economics and life have rolled forward and this is what it's going to cost? There are places that have been developed in town. Everything's $250,000, $2,500 a month. They're slammed and sold out. They'd like more.
yeah, well, and I
How
guess,
do we, and that, so, in it, and this is my whole thing about infill, and some of these things, is the more we can densify the interior of our community without using up big spaces is beneficial all around.
so I guess I wasn't like putting up a counterpoint necessarily to what you were saying.
good.
What I was trying to do was wrap my head around what this really means. And that's why I guess I was saying, so Valley Street could be double in population, and the only thing that I was wondering was that people with money could be skewing what we're thinking. is
Well,
what
it's already that way.
That's
In it, this past, and these are people we know. These are people I live and work with, known them for 40 years.
Yeah,
They say, Mike, you know, I was able to sell my property. I can't buy back in. All of a sudden, my rent is crazy.
Yeah.
You sell, you can't buy back in. If you did it back in the day, you're good. And now it's different.
yeah,
As a community, it has to be an idea of whether you're building lowest common denominator, workforce housing. Let's say workforce housing is 250, say 200,000, 250,000 for living inside. Used to be $500 a month.
yeah.
Now it's 1,500 anyways, right? And that's untouchable, right? You're lucky if you can get in on a 2-bedroom on 1,500. Find me one.
No, I know.
You know what I mean? So some of that's just the economic reality of the world rolling on, and as painful as it is, it needs to be recognized.
So the purpose of this would be to allow people to add additional dwelling space on their lots. If we change,
To have a little more flexibility.
Yeah, it's one part of the equation.
and what that comes down to is their taxes will go up.
There what?
Taxes will go up. Maybe.
Yes, I mean, if you added a 800 square foot apartment to your property, yes, your taxes go up. You also have an income source, though, that you didn't have
Offset
before,
right.
you know. But for the folks who simply want to add a porch or a garage, their taxes are gonna go up, and they have no income stream to offset it. But that's a choice that they wanna make. You know, I'm not here trying to facilitate people adding garages and porches, although I suspect that will be enabled to some degree. We're really trying to add additional units of housing, as Mike said, in the core of the city where all the services already are. There's already stormwater drainage, there's already water and sewer, you know, the traffic is already there. It's somewhat walkable, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So that's better to, if we could get 50, 60, 70 more units of housing over the next 3 or 4 years, just because of this, I would consider that, you know, job well done. Do we need more than that? Yes, but we're not gonna satisfy our total demand by doing this, but, and it's not just green space that we're looking at, we are looking at setbacks, we are looking at lot sizes, we are looking at density. You know, in most of the core of the city, we're at 6 units per acre, which sounds like a lot, I get it. But when you've got a lot that is 0.2 acres in size, you only get 1 unit on there, regardless of what it's zoned, because you would need 1/3 of an acre in order to get 2 units. And when you get in a lot of sections of town, 1/3 of an acre is, you know, it's, you know, that's palatial living. You know?
I got a question. I don't, maybe you already discussed this on the meeting, I wasn't here, but, so, when do we have to upgrade our infrastructure? Like if, I'm just gonna keep going back to Valley Street.
Yeah.
Valley Street right now has a problem with its storm drains. So before you get 30 more, say just whatever, however many more homes in there, increase it double, you're gonna have to rip up the streets and increase its drainage and.
Potentially, I mean, I think the reality is that on a given street, if you got 1 or 2 more units of housing, that's probably the likelihood, because not everybody's gonna wanna do it, you know.
True.
It's, you know, when you got 50 streets like a Valley Street and you get 1 or 2 houses, or units per street, then you get your 80 or 90, 100 total units.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's no plans to submit for funding to do major upgrades before any of this goes in?
No, I mean, from a standpoint of water and sewer on let's just say Valley Street as an example, if there were 3 more units of housing built along there in the course of the next few years, it probably, 99% chance that it does not overwhelm the sewer, and it does not consume the available water supply. Stormwater, maybe a little bit different equation there. But, you know, a building permit gets reviewed by DPW. One of the things they're looking at is their water, is their sewer available to accommodate whatever it is they're doing. Now, if they're adding a porch, it doesn't matter, you know, but if they're adding another unit of housing, then that's part of the equation. We know that, how we're gonna pay for it's a good question, but we know that we have a lot of work that we need to do in terms of stormwater management on a large number of streets.
So is it a possibility to phase in the densification of green space, like phase it over a number of years to address?
We could, instead of doing all of the changes at once, that's a thought of, you know, do some tweaks now and then do some tweaks later type thing. That's a thought. I hadn't considered that, but that's a thought for sure. Yeah.
In and on Valley Street, I'm imagining maybe on the east side on a corner, a house that has a garage or something behind it, a barn. In some of your density things here, the house is a single-family house. I'm just imagining this,
Yeah.
right? You know the one I'm imagining.
I think so.
Could have two, 3 units in it now. And, well, hell, we're doing good, so we'll convert the garage into another 2 units. Then you're starting to impact your densities. In that you're already connected to sewer and water. You're not pushing the envelope on it, but in it, you're creating the density. Density being what they're most crying about, either side of the value system, is to be able to live inside and do something. Once again, reality is it costs a lot more than it used to. But in doing those conversions, and in that, you increase your value, which means you pay more tax. But all of a sudden, if you had 4 other units rented out, you'd be able to afford that as a landowner. Good for the city, good for extra people living there. No judgment on people, please on a dog.
So I think Wes asked a good question, which is, you know, what are you looking to change the green space requirements to? And then what would that build-out analysis look like? Have you done a build-out analysis of, like,
We have not.
it's probably premature, given you don't even have a number yet.
Yeah. I think we could probably do a guesstimate, maybe. You know, like I said, I mean, my anticipation is that if we made all of the changes that we've been talking about, you know, it's just not the green space, but it's setbacks and lot sizes, et cetera, and density. If we made all those changes, if in the next, say, 5 years, we added 100 units of housing in the current RG and maybe the RS zone, because of those changes, I would say we'd be doing very, very well. You know, we're approving, we're approving 8 to 10 ADUs a year right now. But we are getting expressed interest in probably twice that number. And some people just, once they hear what the rules and the regulations are and what's involved, they don't want to do it anymore. You know, no, never mind, I don't want to do it. You know, so if we could convert some of those, I don't want to do it anymore, to I'll pursue it because it's easier and it's more of a sure thing type thing, then, you know, that would be the goal. I mean, as Mike said, there's, even in the RS zone, there's not a lot of available lots or land that could be created into lots. There are some, but, you know, so that you know, this conversion, or the density infill, is just part of the picture. It's not the only solution. It's just part of the picture. We probably need, today, we probably need 300 to 400 units of housing that could be absorbed in the community of medium-priced housing, not
Right.
not expensive and not Section 8, but medium-priced housing. And a mixture of apartments and duplexes and single-family and whatever. And, you know, without impacting current landowners, property owners, landlords, et cetera, there would, I mean, we have virtually a 0% vacancy rate in apartments right now. I mean, our vacancy rate is essentially someone moves out on the 31st of the month, and the landlord takes a week or 10 days to paint, clean the carpets, and if they do that much, you know, and
Change the
then they rent it to a
cockroaches.
new person. That's essentially our vacancy rate, is that week to 10 days where they're refurbishing the apartment, if they even bother to do that, you know. And a healthy market would be more like a 4 or 5% vacancy rate. Now, when you talk to some of these landlords, they would go, oh my God, I don't want to have a 4 or 5% vacancy rate, but, you know, for them, that's one unit for a whole month, you know, in the course of the year, you know, for an individual landlord. So, I get it, but, you know, and then when you get into probably the next tier market of homes, there's a whole nother demand, you know, that $275,000 to say $400,000 range. There's demand in that range as well. There's no easy solution to any of this. You know, it's prices are high, materials cost is high, land prices are high. You know, all those things contribute to the cost of everything. So it's you know, the people who own the drive-in theater, every year goes by, they don't sell it, they increase the price by $300,000. So, you know, it's counterintuitive to me, but, you know, that's the way it is.
The rest of us are at
You
the
know,
other end,
and,
but don't be depressed.
you know, when people sell property, they want to make as much money as they can when they sell it, and they're not concerned about the affordability of what's going to be on there. They just want, you know, they want their due, and you know, and they're certainly entitled to it. So,
Mr. Chair, this does sort of, in the back of my mind, though, strengthen your argument about thinking in terms of, you put it under climate change, but stormwater management, all this densification and the Conservation Commission really thinking about creative ways and things to suggest to people about each lot and how, you know, they can manage stormwater, snow melt, snow storage, all this stuff if we're just gonna have deeper, more dense.
I guess certainly my opinion, which is that we don't need houses that are don't fall into an affordable price range. And I don't know what an affordable price range is. I would think that if a teacher can't afford a house, firefighter can't find one, police, you know, we're gonna lose a whole segment of this population that are working in the service industry, which is, you know, that's what really is important to this city. How can we tie affordable housing guidelines, whatever, to this change? I know that I just made your life really more complicated. But somebody's gotta start somewhere to come up with a price that is affordable.
Yeah,
I liked your example last night about the firefighter or policeman in the.
yeah, I mean, the reality of the situation is the ability of a one-income family to be able to afford a home is, unless that income is very good, but that's not what we're talking about, is highly unlikely. But, I mean, the example I used last night was if you have a third or a fourth year firefighter or policeman, you have a third or a fourth year teacher, and you combine their incomes together, you know, you're looking at $80,000 to $90,000 a year as a family income. And then you can afford, as outrageous as it is, the mid-price range of a house at that point in time. Are you gonna be vacationing in Aruba every year, your first few years when you buy that house? No. And, you know, we had that discussion last night about being house poor. And everybody that was on the master plan steering, we were all house poor when we bought our first house. I mean, it's just usually just the way it is, you know. And you, through income growth, whatever, you get out of that situation. So, yeah, I mean, that's, you're right. And that's the segment of the housing that is not being built right now because of a variety of factors. Cost is one of them, but greed is another, you know. And we are trying to encourage that, and we're trying to encourage it with not just make me a 20-lot subdivision that you're gonna build 20, you know, 1,200 square foot ranches or capes on, and we've solved the problem, because that doesn't solve the problem. We need a very large variety of types of housing, from studio apartments to, you know, 3-bedroom houses or even 4-bedroom houses. And there's not one solution to that problem. But the question about, I'm not sure that we can effectively tie these changes to an affordable housing policy directly, although the types of houses that I think could be, some of the types of houses that could be developed under this would definitely fall into that category. But there are other aspects of things that we're talking about in the Master Plan Steering Committee that potentially we could tie an affordable housing component to that. If, for example, if and when, hopefully it's when, but right now it's if the state school property is developed, if the proposal is, and I'm just gonna pick a number, 200 units of housing, a variety of types of housing, some single family, some apartments, some townhouses, some whatever, duplexes, whatever. That would be the opportunity for the city, through the planning board, because it's a performance zoning area situation, to say, yeah, we'll approve 200 units of housing, but 20% of that, 30% of that, whatever, needs to be affordable housing, and we'll have to come up with some type of a formula of how to define that, but, yeah, we could do it from that standpoint, not so much, I don't think, through this. I think we achieve that somewhat through this effort, but a more direct, quantifiable, would be through that kind of a scenario, more than just trying to, tweak the numbers, let's say, a little bit.
I mean, it's, what's being built here, the cost of of the units that are being built. Most people live here, can't afford it.
Right now, it's $250 a square foot to build. That doesn't include the land, doesn't include appliances, doesn't include putting the pavement down in the driveway, it's just the house. And, used to be 125 3 years ago. So, will that come down a little bit? Hopefully, but probably will never go back to what it used to be.
I'm gonna go home and pay my mortgage.
The bargain now, right? Yeah. Yeah, I finally got to the point where my mortgage is less than my car payment, and I'm not so sure that's a good thing,
What kind of car do you have?
No, I don't have an expensive car.
It's all a matter of scale.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing that would help would be some sort of rent control, but.
That's beyond the purview of this.
Right, but, I mean, I'm
We
just,
welcome you to some other inputs.
But what isn't beyond, I think, our purview might be, as traditional building materials continue to skyrocket, they are coming out with other materials that are less expensive, and I'm not saying this is gonna happen tomorrow, but like the woman I think it's in Africa, who's making bricks out of recycled plastic. And, that's something the Conservation Commission could be thinking of before it happens, or keeping an eye on new technologies, new materials, and how do we feel about them,
Okay, I guess,
So I was just kind of, at this point in time, I'm looking for, you've heard what my numbers could be, and if you feel a need to push back on that's what I would like to hear. If my proposed numbers are within the realm of what you think is reasonable, then, we'll solidify it and bring back the numbers, a definite proposal type thing.
I think, I'm not sure I understand what the impact would be if we change the numbers.
Okay.
Are we going to, for instance, and I think this is what we were getting at in the last meeting, was, okay, so let's say that we change RG to 30 to 35. Can you take the RG zone and show us how many properties will be impacted?
could possibly.
Yeah, could possibly. So
Everything within the RG. then.
not necessarily,
You
because,
pass it as a zone, it's everything in the RG.
but it may be the kind of thing that there are extenuating circumstances, like they have a stream going through their property.
or steep slopes, because I'm thinking
Or
Valley
steep slope.
Street.
Yeah.
Steep slope,
Right.
or they,
And those are all within setbacks in the
or
state.
they're already at,
Right.
for
So
whatever reason, they're already way over their coverage area anyway, because it's been there for 100 years. Yeah.
Right, so it's, I mean, if we took that one zone and we were impacting 3 properties, I mean, that's not a hill of beans.
Right.
So is there a way without going,
Not easy, but, let me propose this to you. Let me go through, say, the last couple of years' worth of ZBA actions where they needed some form of relief and use those as examples of, if we made these changes, they wouldn't need that relief, or maybe they still would, and that would give you an idea maybe of the kind of impact that we're talking about. That would be much easier for me to accomplish.
and then, you know, is there a way that you can look at that and you can say, if the people didn't have to go to the zoning board of appeals, we could have wound up with 10 new dwelling units. So it's like,
But I'd have to weigh in here and say that as this board is, certainly ZBA provides guidelines mostly. And so there's a relatively small amount that's actually rejected, but certainly gives the ability for the community and the neighborhood to give input to that, and in that it will satisfy some of these things. But in my brain now, I got a couple of questions, but mostly, once again, it's guidelines and negotiation. I don't think that you're going to see 75 new units tomorrow. Not everybody's going to want to fill the chicken house or the carriage house up. But as much as I say that, certainly in the past, we've had those. And nowadays, if you were to rebuild the carriage house in a nice manner, maybe we, as a ZBA, would have weighed differently. And so some of that is a culmination of a different view. I can think of a few places that would have, without this, would have been not a million. And as you said it last time we met, about being able to visualize on a piece of property, but this is pretty cool stuff. It takes a lot of looking at it, you know, to be able to look at a series of properties off the zoning, just as an example, and say how it's affected, you know, from a...
Taking the, say, over the last 2 years, the 20 approximately, well, it might be more than that, but let's say 20 applications that maybe would not have had to go to ZBA, or it might have been a slightly different calculation, or so, and we can plot out the tax card and show you, you know, what's there now, and then show you what they propose, so you get an idea of what the impact is, type thing. And then I could say, okay, out of these 20, 15 of them still would have had to go to the ZBA, but 5 of them wouldn't have had to, let's say, or 5 of them maybe wouldn't have needed a CUP. You know, maybe they didn't need to go to ZBA, maybe they just needed a CUP for something, you know, I don't know. You know, but we could look at that. We could do that. It won't give you the full 1,000 parcels that are affected, but it would be a pretty good illustrative
Example.
snapshot of different properties.
Well, the other thing is, if you took a zone, you took RS, and you said RS covers, I don't know, 10 square miles. And if we went from 60 to 45, we would be adding back into that square mile, those 10 square miles, this much more land that could be developed. And so instead of looking at it on an individual lot by lot basis, look at it in this zone, this is the square footage or square miles, and we change the percent from 60 to 30, as an example.
Sure, there's software that does that.
Yeah,
Not that we
mean,
have it, but I'm sure there is.
I mean, you know what I'm.
We can, yeah, I understand what you're looking at. I mean, it's not linear like that, but yes, I
Right,
understand.
right,
what you-
I'm positive it's not, but, if you did it in the most simple way, forget about all the extenuating circumstances, like there's a stream,
Yeah,
the setback isn't adequate, just scrap all that and go right to,
okay. We'll figure out,
I think that's something I could look into, coming up with like a preliminary
Like
idea of
looking
what
at
we're
old
looking at.
Laconia and like 25
Even
years
if
old.
it was
and
a
then 25
template,
years
so when
later.
it came up in some sort of, presentation that these guys would be able to
yeah.
see, you know what I mean? Most of the boards I serve on are used to seeing full plans.
Didn't the visioning or revisioning, weren't some of those sessions, didn't they have build-out plans in that?
We did,
I was just thinking about not having to reinvent the wheel.
yeah,
They're not good.
they're not super accurate to begin with, and then,
Okay.
again, it's to give you the general idea as opposed to really the true specific of what's really gonna happen. I mean, just as another data point, and this, just to to muddy the water a little more, but we have, I don't know the exact number, but we have approximately 400 units of either lots or units of housing that have been approved that have not been built. The likelihood of most of those being built is very low. It's just the way it happens. But, and if they were all built, it would go a long way to perhaps not solving, but alleviating the situation. But they won't be. I mean, it's just, I mean, this is a phenomenon that occurs in most cities, not the smaller communities, but whether it be Somersworth or Keene or Dover or wherever, there's subdivisions and proposals for apartment complexes or whatever, and for whatever reason, they just don't get built,
Do you have a precipitous number where the building permits are gonna run out? Like, they're all gonna run out in 2023?
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, we know when they're gonna run out, but they usually get extended, they come in and get their extensions. Yeah, we got, one very high-end project on Scenic Road that comes in every 6 months. Nice job, Michael.
Right, faster than the
Comes
speed of
in
light, right?
every 6 months and gets his extension up for a special exception from the ZBA.
Can they do that indefinitely?
And, it's just, he always claims it's market conditions, it's this, it's that, I mean,
So they can do that indefinitely then?
in theory, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, planning board's a little more, leery. I was gonna say stricter, but stricter is definitely not the planning board. A little more leery about extensions and it's particularly going really, many, many years. But,
Okay.
Lilac Valley, as an example, down here off of Province Road, just beyond Gilbert Block. And now they're doing their second phase off of Old Prescott Hill Road. I mean, that was approved in 2008. They built 4 units in
Yeah.
2009, and it just sat there.
A
And then
mess,
for whatever reason, in the past year and a half, it's like, okay, we're gonna build them all. And they are definitely workforce housing, and they're renting for $2,000 a month. I mean, that's just the way it
It's
is.
not workforce anymore.
Well,
Well, it is,
Care.
I have a
Depends
job.
on how many jobs you're working.
well,
One person can't work that many jobs.
Well, if
But
you're
anyway.
getting equitable, never mind.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I don't wanna,
All right, so we can do some of those analyses.
Okay.
And then
All
when we got that ready to go, we'll be back.
okay.
There's not a
Great.
super hurry on this, It's just people's lives in the balance.
No matter.
Nothing serious.
It is. Now you're killing me. Oh,
Not in a
good
hurry.
Lord.
We don't have a timetable, we're not.
I mean, I would go so far as right now to say that the RD and the RS, I would be comfortable going down to 50. Just,
Was it
without,
RG and RS, is that what you said, Deb?
yes.
Okay.
The CR, when you said 20, I would definitely push back on that.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
But I might not.
No? Okay.
In it,
Yeah, I mean-
recognizing which ones they are, and some of the other,
More familiar
and
with
some
them
of
than
the
I am.
other stuff that we've been doing. And I'm highly resistant on 0 setbacks, you know what I mean? You gotta mow the lawn around the building.
I realize that it's not clear what we're asking for right now, because we're not presenting you with a definite set of numbers, and I get that, but I
I mean,
don't
just
wanna.
comparing it to the other towns,
yeah,
just going
I-
on that alone.
Yeah, I wanna see
Yeah.
where we maybe have a disconnect, and,
Yeah.
before
But-
we
but-
really start.
Some of it I would point out is, we do compare to other towns. And I was home thinking about this morning as I was working along, and uniquely enough, we're not like other towns. And I've always felt that this has been a progressive planning group here under the current administration. And I think it's been competitive. I really, push back on anything that were anti-business. There is a strong conservation, component in it, and we do pay attention to that. Certainly, we've diced out stuff over the years with, Langley Cove, the proposed stuff there, but that's still what, 290 units? Come on, build it, you're crying about it now. It's already been through the thing, it's already been discussed, it's already been pushed back and forth ad nauseum. It's up now to the developer to build it, and you can't force them to do that.
Right.
That some of those units that are out there, that people are actually pining for.
Right.
And so how you get it to switch that balance, I don't know, but we've not been as restrictive as others. And I worked in Hanover, and one of my favorite things is riding my motorcycle up through Etna into my job in Hanover. And I'd come down, I had a special way, I'd come down through the hills on my bike, it was beautiful, you could look out over it. Everybody's, 2.5 acres on the old farm coming down the Etna Road into Hanover. And they all have signs up as "Don't bust up our green space." But it was improbable to me because the farm was there before they got there. And they're all living on the farmers' streams. And continually, it'll always be, once you're in there, no, you can't. But in here as a town, which is supposed to be a vibrant, growing town, I think internally, in the inner circles, we can look at these modifications to our setback and green space and benefit in some way.
Okay, but we'll wait until Dean and Taylor put it,
Of course we will.
okay. Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Dean.
Okay, so let's go back to the minutes for 11:30, 11/3/21. Anybody have any comments?
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to say, I think you have a quorum without my vote, so I'm going to abstain because I was not here.
Okay. Okay, anybody have any comments?
Did you not?
I'm good.
Okay, anybody want to make a motion?
Motion to accept the minutes from November 3rd, 2021, as submitted.
I'll second.
Any comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great, thank you. Thank you, Taylor. Okay, so now we get down to the NRI.
It's an NRA.
Not today.
Okay.
Can I, since I wasn't here, the point of reading page 30 again?
We were going up to 30, that was,
Oh, up to 30, not just page 30. Oh, okay. Read through page 30. All right, sorry.
okay, so we went as far as page 5 last time, right? Is that right, Taylor?
Yes.
Okay,
Site, one of the proposals put forward to the master plan is as abrupt and succinct as it was in the last master plan. They are speaking for succinctness with links. So there's no discounting all of this here, but with links, without our full NRI with 45 pages, as we move forward for the master plan, we can make a more succinct statement and reference information which is already been previously put together as our last NRI, and also be linked in a more updated new school style to information that might not necessarily be on this.
so what you're saying,
So in the NRI is good, there's a lot of information here, right? You certainly wouldn't want to lose any of that. But as we go forward in the master plan, I don't know what the wording is, right? We knew how abrupt the last one was. But this one takes into account all of the work that's been done and allows you to read into a new school document with references and links as to anything, and this is where the suggestions came in, that would be relevant to our NRI in our community. No way does anybody want to discount or not pay attention to this. It's a lot like the old one. But when we look at the situation or the times we're in now, and we look at stuff like the state school, which we always know have a high input of the people who are interested for, like, agriculture. But in the reality of today's society is at the highest and best use. All for discussion and debate, but in reality, what it is, they're looking to build community and neighborhoods there. This is an extensive, last two have been extensive on their information. All of it should be absorbed into the new NRI as a part of the master plan, even if the statement isn't as voluminous or weighty as 44, 50 pages. Certainly anything with it has references and footnoted that directly links to these things, so it can be used as reference for further development. Sorry.
So, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's all good. That's all I
So,
got there.
I mean, so, I think what I understood you're saying is, this document is almost, it's 58 pages long. And what you're saying is, in the master plan, they don't want 58 pages. What they would want is they would want us to summarize this NRI into whatever, 5 pages.
And this other thing that I've learned, remember back in the day when they talked about this, they gave, because we all worked on this. 2 times ago, they gave a list of maybe 50 things that they thought was a good idea. And it was too much. Nothing got done. In the last one, we gave them a list of what, 10 to 15 bullets, of which 7, am I somewhere in here, have been accomplished. So in that, I'd look at a review of those bullets, see where we move forward on it. And, you know, we might have other recommendations to how we look forward to the next 7 to 10 years. But once again, as they make the statement, they may not want to actually put in the document all of this, but in a new school desire, hit a button, and it references all the previous data that we've put together. So you don't discount any of that.
Well, I think if you don't see it, it's discounted. I mean, I appreciate what you're saying is that that sure, I'd love to see it condensed, because I really don't want to wade through all this. I'm being somebody else myself. I don't want to wade through all this stuff, but if you don't see it, it doesn't exist.
But and without discounting citizen science, you know, a whole lot of the Granite, New Hampshire sites I've learned so much from.
Yeah.
You know, and there's stuff in there that won't be in a Word document like this, you know, but if the reference was there, certainly you would be encouraged to go forward and look at it. When you talk about, you know, watersheds or these dense areas in a community, it should be easily seen in a new school access.
And just another reaction I have, and actually I'm not that attuned to it, but are we reacting by taking information from the past? Are we reacting to people who are no longer at the table?
Huh? Well, there's a fine question. And that is, you know, some of this, once again, the weight that, agriculture keeps weighing on some of our open spaces, yet there's no one buying tractors or anything to be able to do it or putting their money into it. There's fewer farms, you know. So as it used to be, it may not be now.
Well, and I was,
And once again, as it used to be, those who aren't at the table may not be there now. And that's how it changes.
and I was reacting the opposite way, that there may be some people who recognize the need for development, but are not also thinking in the same development, the same way that it was being pushed before and the other earlier master plan. I think we had some people from, in the earlier master planning process that were thinking sprawl. So, that's all, I'm just,
That's fine, and once again, we can see the benefits of open space conservation by internalizing, development. Where we already have utilities.
I mean, I think that what Taylor has done here, going through, taking the 2009 and updating it, has made it more current. And I think that certainly we can, when we go to the master plan, we can, you know, cut some of this out, or summarize this, not cut it out, summarize it, so that it would reference back to this, you know, 57-page document, so that we don't lose the detail. But to your point, Mike, it's, okay, so what's the purpose of this? You know, this is not like, you know, this is not like a school assignment.
Right.
This is, you know, we're trying to put into as few pages as possible, or, I think that's the wrong, as needed, so that we can evaluate what the natural resources are in the city. You know, what are they? What, you know, what's important? What, you know, what is it that, you know, if we have 15 items, a 15-item to-do list in the past, you know, maybe we only have 10 items to do now, but it comes out of here.
It'd be nice to see it comparatively, to see what we have accomplished.
Oh,
off the
absolutely, yeah.
last,
I think that's a great idea.
Right, it'd be nice to have further discussion after, see what we did, review what Taylor's done.
Mm-hmm.
And as we go forward, maybe Taylor can send us something, we can see what we have or haven't, and in what ways we could go forward.
And then to go forward, to prioritize those things going forward.
Correct.
And so I think that's a good idea. I think, you know, what we have to do is we have to go through this document and make sure that it accurately reflects what we're trying to communicate. So, because I guess, you know, this is the science document, and the master plan is not a science document.
Correct.
The master plan is how we gonna run this city.
And that's how we reference those.
Yeah,
And that's where the input comes in from this board.
right. And then, you know, maybe the way to do it is to complete our review and comments on this, and then go to, you know, people from the steering committee for the master plan and say, okay, this is what we have, you know, we can walk you through it pretty quickly and tell you what we have. What is it that you are looking for as a steering committee, so that we can then pick out the information that they're looking for, the information we think is important.
I think I would lean on staff for that.
I also think that the NRI we can get as specific as we want in that, because we're referencing it in the master plan. But I also think there are ideas that would be carried over to the master plan, like improving water quality, that can be accomplished in 5 different ways. So it might come, like, we can say, like, you know, here's our 5 suggestions for the master plan, but we have 10 different ideas for each one and how to accomplish it. So I think that still gives us the flexibility to use whatever's written in the NRI for accomplishing master plan goals.
I agree. I think that's, and, you know, if, the one thing that was not in the 2009 is climate change. And I'm not sure what the city is doing, if anything, regarding climate change.
And that might be an idea, just to have its own chapter in the master plan on how
Right.
we're addressing that, rather than trying to, or rather than sort of minimizing that and putting it just in the natural resources chapter, because that will affect every corner of the city, so.
So who chairs the master plan steering committee?
It'd be your head of planning, it'd be Peter Burnett,
Okay,
am I correct?
I believe so.
okay.
Stacy Susie is a vice.
So we can invite Peter to come to a meeting and specifically talk about this, make it a working session. Have Peter and Stacy here.
Either or.
Have both of them.
His health, he usually comes through, the screen,
Okay,
health, contact people.
but we have both of them come and then we,
That'd be interesting, then they'd have to state goals.
To
Or
have,
what they look from here, or how it is. It's a good conversation, I'm not beyond that.
is that something you wanna add to the next agenda, or would that be something we wanna wait until we're done outlining what we want as a commission?
I don't know, should we listen to them first?
Yeah, it can kinda go both ways, so
Yeah.
I'm just not sure if that's something, do we wanna pursue it
There's
right
nothing
away?
but stated, everything's just been, looking in for input. They're not doing this yet, unless it's at. Parking lot. Never mind.
Can somebody remind me, Stacy Susie was mentioned at the beginning of this meeting, she requested something of us at the last meeting, I wasn't here,
Has,
to think about something?
she did. And it's in the minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
It was about I think we were discussing recycling
Right.
with her.
Okay,
Oh, yes, the cardboard recycling, yeah.
thank you, I'm sorry, I forgot, I didn't know if it was related to this.
I was talking to somebody the other day along recycling. We don't recycle bottles.
Right.
Wolfboro does. So
Guilford
somebody-
does.
Huh?
Guilford does.
They
Yeah.
pay.
So
I mean,
somebody was taking their bottles and giving them to their son who lived in Wolfboro. And he was putting it into the Wolfboro recycling, and then in Wolfboro, they don't recycle plastic bottles, and we do, so it was like,
Yeah.
I'll give you my bottles, you give me your bottles, and everybody's,
Yeah.
nobody knows.
Jeez.
So-
I've heard of a couple of people that are families that are doing that.
Yes.
So I guess it's 7:30. Do we want to postpone going over the rest of this up to page 30? And do it in the next meeting?
Mr. Chair, is it possible we could dedicate a meeting just to this?
Sure. Yeah, we could have a working meeting
Yeah, I think
where we
that's-
didn't take any
Yeah,
applicants.
Do you guys wanna make that the next one? I mean, as far as I'm aware right now, we don't have any applicants anyways, so.
So that would
that's
be the
something we-
beginning of December.
Yeah, it would be December 1st.
And are you doing a second meeting in December?
Yeah, there's also one scheduled for the 17th, or
15.
15th, yeah.
I mean, I think that makes sense.
I'd push forward on that.
And get as far through this as we can. And Taylor and I talked about putting a date stamp on the versions so that if we make changes, like we made changes in the first 5, so that's got a date stamp, so we know that that is not the same as the one that I have here, which does not have a date on it, so.
Good idea.
Just so that we,
Do you want me each time, so I made the edits that we discussed for the executive summary. This is, the version that you're linked to is still that same version. Do you want me to update it and relink the newest version each time, or do you wanna just work off of the one that we've been dealing with right now?
okay, so the executive summary is the first 5 pages?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like page 4 through 5, 4 and 5.
I think as we delve into it more, we may want to go back and reference something we've said.
Okay.
So as long as we have the tablets and can easily call up the document and go back,
Mm-hmm.
it
Then I
might
can-
make sense to update it.
Okay, yeah, I can make sure I start doing that.
And I think, to Mike's point, that they're looking for specific, in terms of, some of the issues that we have identified, we just move them to the back of the document. Like the history of Laconia. You can put that at the back,
That's the type of stuff I was saying
Be a
that you
link.
wouldn't
Yeah.
reject,
Link, yeah.
but if
It
you're
wouldn't- it
looking
wouldn't go in
for a more focused thing, it would be something that you'd reference.
right,
I agree.
okay.
Taylor, I just have one little, on page 6,
Mm-hmm.
as I was reading it, so, right at the first line, it says the NRI was create in 2009, to be created.
Thank you.
Yep. Sorry, I just couldn't
Teacher,
let that go.
teacher.
Drop the D?
Oh, I get,
Drop
read
the
these
D
things.
plenty of times.
I'll just would forget the next time.
Okay, I think that the other thing that would be, I'm just not, I'm trying to figure out what would be the best time to have Peter and Stacy come and talk to us about what they're looking for. Do we want it to be at the beginning of next meeting, or would we want them to give us a written statement that says 5 pages, that's all we want, 5 pages, you pick out, whatever you wanna put in those 5 pages? Or,
article,
Are you asking us or are you asking her?
no, I'm asking us, I'm asking everybody.
I think asking them to submit something in writing, and then that gives us a framework for our first meeting anyway, December 1st. If we have questions, we can ask them. But
And what are you asking them again? Just keep me on course.
to give us a summary of what they're looking for, to give us a framework to shoot for. So he's saying, if they say, we only want 5 pages, then we know that's what we want.
And I might say here that maybe they haven't quite gotten there yet.
Oh, okay.
And some of this is creating the document through the steering plan, and then, of course, planning accepts it. But certainly, there's some value into knowing what type of way they want to go. I don't know. It's just a little bit undefined right there in my
what
mind.
if I send an email saying, is there anything you are certain on, like you're 100% like, needs to be under 10 pages or something like that? I can bring those thoughts to the working session, and then if we, maybe that gives you about a month, maybe there'll be more room for discussion at the second December meeting, and we can invite them into that one and discuss.
I think the other thing is that we, and I'm gonna put words in our mouth. that we're recommending that there be a separate section on climate change. A separate chapter.
Relative to the master plan.
I mean, I don't wanna take the,
Do we all agree that Mike's suggestion of kind of having these like quick reference links? What I'm thinking is that's something we could give Taylor to take to them, saying, the commission has already discussed the possibility of taking some of this information out and just making it a quick link. It's not lost, but it's a quick link. That way they know what we're thinking.
And I think a lot of this too can be published on the city website. I mean, maps don't need to be involved in the master plan and the data tables, just
But it
take the
can be
highlights
on
of
our
each
website.
section.
Methodology. Yeah, methodology.
But it can be on our
Yeah.
website.
Yeah.
Like,
the
what
whole
does
thing.
somebody who's looking at what our city's trying to do really need to know from this?
Either from a development standpoint, from a people who live here,
Yeah.
people who have an interest in, how we care.
Like, I think, Dean, you talked about it at one point, is I don't necessarily know if everyone living in the city cares too much about what kind of rocks their house is on top of. But they should know X, Y, and Z about the resources that are in the city,
yeah, I mean, I think that's right, and, Wes may be teaching a class and say, we're gonna do a section on geology in Laconia, go to the NRI on the city website and read that section, and write a paper about it.
Right on.
Sounds like a good plan.
Rock on.
No, that's not what I was thinking.
But I think the other thing that we're gonna wanna do here is Winnisquam Watershed Network is doing a watershed management plan. We're gonna wanna reference that, pick out whatever the highlight points are of that in that executive summary, and we're gonna want to append it. I think we would want to append it to this report.
The same with the Winnipesaukee,
Right.
Lake Winnipesaukee Association. Yeah.
Are you saying, link that to the master plan chapter or to this as
To-
well?
To
I
our,
have some on the Winnipesaukee one, but not the Winnisquam.
Right. I would link it to this, and then we would take out whatever the 6 or 10 points are.
Okay.
And put it,
I really like to see what it is that we put in before and what we call that we've advanced on, because I just don't have that in my vision, and it'd be interesting to see how we'd move forward. Actually, I think that's fascinating, I don't know.
Remember when I first read the 2009 inventory, I was like, oh, we did that one, we did that one, so I think that's a good way to look at it too, see where we came from.
okay, so let's do that. Let's, you put together an email to Peter and to Stacy, kind of giving them an outline of, or a flavor for what we're gonna be doing. See what their reaction is to it.
Okay.
And tell them that we have a working session December 1st. And that when they're sitting home after they've had too much tryptophan, they can start to,
Hey, you gotta go see our town, don't pick on Stacy, you better get your
That's
tickets
right.
and get over there
That's
Saturday night.
okay, so the one thing I would like to do though is, and I know, is take a few minutes and look at the expenditure report for this year.
So everyone has a copy of that in front of them. That's as of October 31st, so.
We do?
No sign?
So,
We
yeah.
didn't have to put sign in here?
No, because I think that was paid for
Okay,
in
thanks.
the 2020 fiscal year,
Alright,
and they were just holding on to it until we installed it.
what's miscellaneous?
I don't know exactly what that all goes towards.
The dues, maybe?
Our annual fees are all of the dues that we would.
Oh, sorry, that's right.
I think maybe the miscellaneous is,
I
conferences,
think it's
Training is just above it.
I think miscellaneous might be things like, do we need new things for water quality testing, or something that wouldn't fit into supplies. I can double check what the actual line item is listed as.
So
No
is,
one's going to Cancun on it.
so is $1,000 something we contribute to the Weed Watcher program?
I believe that's what we're allotted for paying for the Lake Host program,
Okay,
or matching.
that's what
Oh, I thought we were 1,200 on that.
No, that 1,200 is what New Hampshire Lakes gave us.
All right.
Right. Yeah.
Are you looking for us to approve this, or not
No.
approve it?
Dean just wanted an
Oh,
update, so
okay.
I just wanted to make everyone aware of it, so I mean, 80% of the postage has been used, but that can carry over to miscellaneous, and then we've only used 20% of the total budget so far, so.
So does this go back into some, we just hang on to it, it doesn't roll into something else, or what happens to it?
If we don't use the money?
Yeah.
I think you can request for it to be rolled over to the following year. I don't know if we can do that for all of the funds, or if you need to pick specifically, like, oh, we want Weed Watchers to roll over, or something like that.
Are we always
We have to,
supposed?
we
I'm
can't
sorry.
call it Weed Watchers, sorry.
That's what, you know.
That's like a whole different program.
Yeah,
Right,
Okay.
So it's,
Yeah.
No,
it's Lake
that's
Host.
what was on the,
It has to
that's
be
like
Lake.
line item.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it's 100.
so is
I
our,
can look into getting that changed for next year.
sorry, so is our general fund always supposed to be at $4,500? I mean, like, we start the year with $4,500 and then spend it down?
Yeah, I believe so, and I believe it's allotted in these categories. That's what we're structured to. I don't know, from what I saw, the last handful of years have been 4,500.
Okay.
right,
So I think that's the standard
I mean,
that
Dean,
you're allotted.
Yeah, Dean's always represented us, that I remember.
right. So it's, we asked them for $4,500, they put 45 in.
Okay,
We have to break it down by line item, and we can move things around among the line items, so that if we need more than $100 in postage, we can take,
bless you.
Message.
So didn't we at one time have like a pot of money though, because didn't we spend it like to do things? Is that separate from this?
I don't know.
So there's also the current use fund, which is capped at 250,000.
Which is available to us?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
I believe, I checked it recently and it says there's 14,000 in it right now. I believe that's because I think some funds were used for the pickerel pond.
Yeah,
Yep.
yes, that's right. That's what I was,
So that's slowly
So we have
rebuilding, but right now it's
14,
at about 14.
okay, thank you.
So I think that I don't think the city council would approve us requesting, as an example, transferring the $4,500 or whatever's left, the $4,000, that's
35, 69, 37.
transferring that into the conservation fund. I don't think we can do that, but we can hold it for a period of time,
Oh,
and it's not, it's not set in concrete that we can hold it for 2 years. It varies. If we had a good reason for holding it, like we wanted to buy water testing equipment, or we wanted to put a launch ramp in at Pickerel Pond so that people could easily launch their kayaks, that, I think that would be a legitimate request that we make to city council.
As in rolling over from last year?
Rolling over from last year, I mean, if we didn't,
I think that's part of the process of the approving the budget in the first place, so I I think we've kind of missed that timeline, but I can discuss it with Dean and see what he says.
yeah, so I think that the question is, what other funds do we have besides the CUP and these? Because there were a couple of pots that we had, in the past, gotten them to approve rolling over.
I imagine some funds come from the planning department's budget itself. I don't know exactly what's allocated to potential conservation projects. I think that's kind of up to Dean's discretion.
Isn't that milfoil? Is that one of the ones you're thinking of?
No, because the city council puts money in for milfoil.
Oh, okay.
But I think what we did in the past is when we did the 2009 NRI, we used some of those monies to pay the consultant to do it. We had money that we had rolled over, and the justification for rolling it over was, we're gonna have this consultant do this. So,
I guess, are you asking for a specific amount to be rolled over for a specific project, or we're just getting like an idea of what we have?
yeah, just what do we have?
Okay, I can talk to Dean about what contribution from the planning department budget involves us.
Okay.
Dean, what were you thinking of in terms of upgrades to Pearly Pond? Is that any money that you'd wanna?
Well,
Okay.
we had talked about, Deb met the guy who was renting kayaks, and we were going to,
Not Pickerel Pond, Pearly Pond.
no, did I say Pearly Pond?
I said Pearly Pond, and I thought you were
No,
going towards Pickerel
no,
Pond
no,
there
no,
with
no.
kayaks.
No, I don't have any idea what we could do at Pearly Pond. Unless, I mean, one of the things that the city council asked us to do was to come up with a planning plan for planting stuff.
Were you gonna hire do we talk about a consultant and hiring somebody at one time?
I think we talked about using cooperative extension, some of the people there. I mean, I don't think we need to make this real complicated,
Okay, I was just thinking about money, that's all, I'm sorry.
because, you know, the plantings would be quote-unquote temporary, because if the city council decided to spend the monies that were in the work that was done by Rust, whoever the engineering consultant that wanted the dredge and,
Rich Ross.
hmm?
It was
The
before my
Rich
time, so I'm just not too sure.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, they wanted to do serious work there, and the city council didn't want to spend the money at this time, so they tabled it. And they asked us to do plantings in some sort of planting scheme instead. So, we could put that on the agenda for a work session,
In the spring.
and, yeah.
So it sounds like we're not moving a motion tonight, because we're waiting for
For
Taylor.
what?
To accept, are we accepting this, or what are we?
No, this is informational purposes.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I'm losing it here, okay.
Sleep. Hungry.
No, I'm starting to fade, sorry.
Okay, so it's almost 8:00. Anybody have, I mean, we have an agenda here, anybody have anything on that agenda that they want to discuss? Like, staff?
I think I've shared everything I needed.
Okay.
Actually, there's one update. I don't know if it interests anyone too much, but, the DES is updating their laws regarding composting facilities, so their public commenting period just opened, so that's available on their website, and I have a link to it. I can send that out if anyone just wants to review what they're changing.
Does the city of Laconia
No, it's.
call composting facilities, or would it be something like pedal pushers?
It's something, yeah, it's not really transfer station type work, it's more so specific areas that are focused on composting from farms, and, you know, how much are they allowed to take and accept from other.
Because pedal pushers was taking everything.
Right, they were taking all the leaves and grass clippings, but they're not doing that anymore. So they go up to the transfer station, and then the transfer station
Sends it to Guilford.
sends them to Guilford, right?
Good,
And
okay.
if you ride in with a little red dump truck full of leaves, they will ask you why you're pulling in there and why you don't drive it to Guilford and save them the gas money. Go ahead, ask me how I know.
What?
I actually saw some people talking about that on the
Yeah,
on the
right.
Facebook page. They're like, I can't bring
Yeah.
my leaves anymore.
So a good resource, if you have questions about composting and all, Paige Wilson at the Lakes Region Planning Commission is their solid waste person. And she's written some composting documents, like for summer camp, since she's on the institutional side of stuff. It's her main interest, I guess, but she's all over it, so she's a good resource, Paige Wilson.
So I'll send out that email, so you guys
Okay.
can review it if you'd like.
That would, yeah, that'd be great, thank you.
The house that's being rebuilt on South Main Street where the fire was, did you talk to them about a silt fence or silt sock?
Yeah, it was discussed with them, they should be complying with that. They did get accepted at planning board, so I am assuming that that message was passed along into that notice of action, but I'll double check with Rob.
Yeah, cause I looked today and it didn't look like there was anything back there.
Okay.
Is this the couple that came in?
Yes, yeah, we forgot to suggest that when they were here.
I thought we talked about it, didn't we?
Oh, no.
Hmm.
But anyway, I
Oh, we
brought it up
did.
at the next meeting and just said we should
Yeah.
add that to it, or
I'll make
I,
sure
yeah,
Rob discusses, I'll talk to him about it and make sure
Okay.
it's on the NOA for them.
alright. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Okay, anybody wanna make a motion, Mike?
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you, have a good Thanksgiving, be safe,
You were
and
suffering,
see you December 1st.
All the other things I need to get done.
huh?
So thinking of all the other things I need to get done.
I'm sorry.